1918, the birth of a nation. Czechoslovakia is free, and the people of Prague pour out their tribute to the father of Czech independence. His name, Thomas Masaryk. At the end of World War I, he persuades the victorious Allies to create an independent Czechoslovakia out of a part of the old Austrian Empire. In 1935, after serving as president for 17 years, Masaryk is succeeded by Edvard Beneš, a longtime associate. And between World Wars I and II, Czechoslovakia is the only country in Central Europe to consistently maintain a democratic parliamentary form of government. While freedom flourishes in Czechoslovakia, tyranny takes root in Nazi Germany. Adolf Hitler is firmly in power and demanding that the Czechs give up the Sudetenland and its 3 million German-speaking Czechs. The little nation is no match for the Third Reich in size, population, or military might. But Beneš is determined and defiant. Czechoslovakia will not yield, he says, and he orders a mobilization of the country's military forces while pleading with England and France to join in hurling back any German attempt to seize the Sudetenland. At this critical moment in history, Adolf Hitler plays host to a fateful meeting in Munich. England, France, and Italy give in to Germany to ensure, they say, peace in Europe. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain signs the ill-fated pact for England. Then Italy's Benito Mussolini adds his name, and Premier Edouard Daladier of France is the last of the big four to sign. Czechoslovakia is not even represented. Neville Chamberlain is jubilant on his return to London. He has negotiated in good faith. He has achieved peace, and now he can say, But Adolf Hitler has no intention of honoring the Munich Pact. After sending his troops into the Sudetenland in October 1938, the German Führer scraps the treaty completely 5 months later. He annexes Czechoslovakia by setting up a puppet government in Slovakia and making Bohemia and Moravia protectorates of the Third Reich. Edvard Beneš resigns as president and goes into exile. Then, in his mountain retreat at Berchtesgaden, Adolf Hitler makes a fateful miscalculation. He invades Poland, confident that England and France will not intervene. But this time, they do. And a year after Munich, Europe is plunged into World War II. In London, a Czechoslovakian government in exile has been set up with Edvard Beneš as its head. For 5 years, the determined Czech leader keeps the dream of Czech independence alive. Visiting the United States, Beneš receives a promise from President Roosevelt that America will support Czechoslovakia's restoration at war's end. Joseph Stalin agrees too, but only after gaining important territorial concessions in exchange for Russian backing of Czech autonomy. By April of 1945, Hitler's legions are in full retreat. In Prague, street fighting breaks out. Czech patriots rise up against countrymen who have collaborated with the hated Nazis. The avenues of the picturesque capital city become a no man's land as Prague awaits its liberation. First to enter are the Russians. Allied commanders have ordered America's General Patton to remain on the outskirts of the city while the Soviet troops make their triumphal entry. The last symbols of the German occupation are put to the torch and purged from Prague. And Edvard Beneš returns on May 8, 1945. Hopes are high that he can restore a representative and democratic government. The crowd does not know, nor can President Beneš know, that Czechoslovakia's newly regained independence will be short-lived. Parliamentary elections held in 1946 show the nation to be 70% anti-communist, but the communists are able to take control of the state machinery. And in February 1948, the Czech parliament agrees to the formation of a coalition government headed by a hardline communist, Klement Gottwald. In May, Gottwald holds national elections with only communist candidates on the ballot. A month later, Edward Beneš resigns for a second time. The Iron Curtain rolls across Czechoslovakia, and the nation joins the communist bloc in Eastern Europe. Freedom is dead, and so too is Edward Beneš, 3 short months after his resignation. Grief is etched in every face as liberty-loving Czechs file past their fallen leader. An era has ended, and with it, a nation's struggle for self-determination. The new communist regime pursues a rigid and repressive policy. Klement Gottwald nationalizes industry, collectivizes farming, makes police terror the law of the land, and repeatedly denounces the United States for her alleged imperialism. The Red Leader follows the Moscow line faithfully until his death in 1953. When Nikita Khrushchev comes to call, he is greeted by Gottwald's successor, Antonín Novotný. The new Czech leader embraces Khrushchev and communism with fervor and feeling. Breaking bread with his host, Khrushchev offers a pledge of support and unity. But the crowds who see and hear the Soviet premier are reminded and forcefully of Czechoslovakia's satellite status and allegiance to Moscow. The country becomes more and more a police state. Novotný adheres strictly to the dictates of his Russian masters. He strengthens Czech military might, but he also plunges the nation's once robust economy into chaos. In the age-old competition between guns and butter, there are too many guns and not enough butter. Unrest grows, dissatisfaction spreads. Communist members of the Czech parliament begin to express openly their resentment at Novotny's hard line. They talk of a new liberalized form of communism, a kind of democratic socialism. The parliamentary revolt comes to a head in March 1968. Novotny is forced to resign. Mastermind of the bloodless coup is Alexander Dubček, leader of the liberal forces. For a few short months, Czechoslovakia undergoes a remarkable transformation. The people are promised a new government that will guarantee free speech and the secret ballot. To stimulate business, Dubček and his reformers pledge a speedy return to a liberalized economy. The daring and dramatic actions find a quick acceptance and positive response from the Czech people. The fabric of their lives takes on a new look as they sample and take to themselves many of the ways of the West. No innovation is more stunning and striking than the fashion creations of Czech designers. A new light has been kindled, and its glow illuminates many shapes and forms. The nature of communism is changing in Czechoslovakia, and the change threatens to spread throughout the rest of Eastern Europe as well. And so, while the Czechs do and say and promise things unheard of behind the Iron Curtain, The free world waits and wonders just how far the Soviet Union will let the satellite nation go in its pursuit of democratic socialism. Less than 3 weeks later, the embers are stamped out. The spirit is crushed. A wire service bulletin flashes the word to an unbelieving world. Russia and her Warsaw Pact allies have sent troops and tanks into Czechoslovakia to put an end to the democratization of the nation. The nightmare of the Nazi occupation is relived with all of its grim and terrible consequences. The people awake to read again of the death of a dream. Czechoslovakia is once more in the merciless grip of the communist bosses in the Kremlin. How long the Soviet imprint will remain, only the men in Moscow know. But one thing is certain, Czechoslovakia and her people must wait for another time, another day, to reclaim the freedom that is their history and heritage.